Guys, it's about to start. Hello and welcome to The Rush Behind. My name is Nick Tabato and I'm joined here today by St Kilda. We're all in different positions now, a bit out of whack. St Kilda aficionado Christopher Nice and Richmond Tragic and the host of Breakfast on FNR, the friend of Nick Hughes' friend, as he likes to say as well, Athos Sirianos. We're off location today. We obviously are not allowed into the RMIT studios, so we've taken this to TRB HQ and unfortunately that means the show completely changes as well.
It does, but you know, during these times, it's a very fluid situation, so we've got to be fluid as well. And for as long as we can, we're going to try and bring content to your screen. So very much looking forward to seeing what we can do.
Let's go to Gillon McLaughlin.
Today, after a meeting with the AFL Commission, the AFL has moved to immediately suspend the 2020 Toyota AFL Premiership season at the conclusion of this weekend's matches. The 31 May 2020 resumption time for the season will be reviewed, and depending on the medical advice and government regulations in place at the time, the date could be extended out.
It's a bit of a dire time, not just with the players not playing, but a whole sort of wide-ranging implications for the whole league and the competition itself.
Absolutely is. We all know, we saw round one go ahead. We thought we might get a couple of weeks into the season, but we got the news late Sunday that the AFL would be cancelled, postponed I should say, no more footy until at least May 31. So that situation ever changing, as we know. So yeah, it's just going to be interesting to see how these next few weeks pan out.
Well, there's not much to do. The players can't train, they can't play.
They can't leave the house.
No, so they're in a bit of strife. So if they do stay May 31, and that is the case, does that mean that May 31 they can go back to training? What day is that, May 31?
I think training can go back before, so early May players can be allowed to train if the situation remains stable at the moment. But football will return matches, from my understanding, from May 31.
Do we know if it's like back to crowds or is it games without fans?
It'll be without crowds.
So
they'll be keeping a lid on it for as long as they can, but then it's when they can get, games in, they'll start with that first and then
so it's all about, I guess, the curve being flattened first enough to a point where they can at least start
where they're
playing,
in a position to play games.
Games, and then they worry about the rest.
Yes.
Yeah, baby steps.
Yes.
But it's just depressing. I've got nothing to look forward to.
Nothing.
Just anything. Because you look forward to the weekend, you've got nothing to look forward to. Can't go out.
Yeah, you can't watch West Ham as well.
Can't even
I guess
for a kick at the front.
Guess we've just got to do that in these times. So we've all got to play our parts. So
yeah,
and we've seen the AFL have done their bit to help with that flattening of the curve, as you said.
Think about it like this: if for football fans out there, and really fans of any sport, or really people interested in terms of life, if you want normality to go back to anything, I suggest just staying inside, taking that small stuff out to do what you can in the short term for greater long-term implications, so you can actually get out and get back to a sense of normality. Let's talk a little bit about the future. Financial implications are massive. We saw a whole lot of job cuts in all facets of it, not just with the AFL but the clubs as well, teams letting go of their whole football department, their whole media department, whether it's permanent or temporary, the losses are going to be massive.
It is. AFL got rid of 80% of their staff. It's massive cuts trying to get as much, to keep all 18 clubs afloat, which, when it comes to dire circumstances like these, unfortunately some hard decisions have to be made, but it's in the interests of the league itself and preserving that.
The AFL will be fine. They're in a very lucky situation financially in comparison to the other clubs, and the advantage the AFL has is you've got 5 or 6 really rich clubs. So what they're doing now is they're going to your Richmonds and West Coast and Collingwoods, and they're telling these guys, put some money aside as guarantors, so then they can get a whole lot of money together, go to the bank, get an even bigger loan, and they'll be fine. The NRL's in trouble, FFA's in trouble, but the AFL will be fine.
Also, NAB's the major sponsor of the AFL as well, so they really shouldn't have a problem in terms of getting.
But you've got a lot of clubs with money, and they'll happily put up money to save the league.
I think it's more about the clubs that don't. It's your Gold Coast.
That's why these bigger clubs will save it.
But I think it's going to be interesting to see, because there were talks of potential mergers. I don't think it's going to happen, but I wouldn't rule anything in or out at the moment. Just got a little friend that's walked into shot at the moment. But honestly, that's just sort of how it's looking at the moment. Let's talk a little bit about what happened on the weekend, round 1 implications. Do we think it sort of becomes nullified? Because we're not going to have footy for about 3 months. And I guess that's sort of how we're looking at the moment in terms of, do these results really matter?
Well, before we probably touch on that, one thing I want to float by you guys. I know we were all chuffed to see footy again back. It was that time of year we saw it on our screens. But would we have rather have not had a round 1 to begin with and just had it called off from the get-go? It was the right.
Our teams get a 4-point head start.
That's true.
We spoke about banks. Take that 4 points straight to the bank. Use it later when it matters.
Well, as Gillan McLaughlin said, they were in a position to start round 1 and they were hoping that they'd be able to squeeze in at least 4 rounds before the season inevitably had to be postponed. So what do you guys reckon? Was it the right call for them to proceed with round 1? Or?
Well, the medical advice at the time was to continue, so they acted on that. So at the time, it was the right call, and then they cancelled it, which was the right call too at the time. You mentioned it's a fluid situation, and that personified that.
Yeah, well, it really is, and things could change by the time this show goes there. Remember, this is being recorded on Wednesday. But yeah, look, the implications, I think, it sort of makes round 1 nullified in terms of performances. It's not like you can really read into it and say, next week they have to bounce back, because next week is technically 2 months away. It gives teams a chance to load up with some injured players that they had out, which we'll talk a little bit about later. And I think all it does is you just get that 4-point head start when footy inevitably comes back, hopefully sooner rather than later. If you get footy back by June, I think that would it'd be great as well for the spirits. And I think, hopefully, as the curve flattens, not just here but around the world and other countries, hopefully we get other competitions around the world and other codes coming back. I think it'll be hopefully time the AFL could follow suit. We get some games under our belt.
Yeah, I think we should say, I don't think round 1's redundant personally. I think, like you said, Nick, it's just a good little head start for those teams. You can't read too much into form and everything like that. It's just, you get some positive indicators, but just think of it as another Marsh Community Series match, but with some premiership points attached.
Well, Adelaide already talking about winning the flag, looking at omens and saying, well, every 4 years, every leap year, the team that's on top of the ladder at the end of round 1 wins the flag. So I was a little bit disappointed when I saw that they jumped us after Friday night.
Yeah, not your regular season though, so
no. It's not 22 games, there's not normal quarters, there's no fans in the stands.
No, trends might be bucked.
It really is. And look, guys, I just want to touch on round 1 as a whole. I think just in terms of being able to switch off for a bit and be able to watch some footy, as much as it didn't look the same, I think it was good. Like for me, watching the game on Friday night, just being able to see Collingwood play, I know it was the same with you guys watching Richmond and St Kilda. It was just like, all right, footy's back, at least we've got something to watch. Yeah. Because now, I'm not going to lie, my weekends feel a little bit barren, not having something, as Athos said, to look forward to on a weekend. Crowds or no crowds.
Some semblance of normality, I guess, which was good to see. It was a bit eerie hearing, or not hearing the crowd, I should say. Just hearing, echoes reverberate around stadiums, pretty interesting, but it was great to have while it lasted.
It was enjoyable.
Yeah.
Got a taste, and hopefully we can get the full meal, hopefully by June.
Well, I hope so too, and I hope that we can get crowds back in. Once at some stage, I personally am really starting to get a bit of FOMO, missing the footy and not being able to go. I think on Friday, a lot of the guys as well that debuted this weekend as well will be feeling a little bit, what's the right word, a little bit empty.
Yeah,
not just
it was good that they were allowed to have their immediate family in there, which was good for the Browns and the Kings and.
But imagine
and everyone to come
Max
down.
King kicked the goal against North Melbourne, kicked two, and how the St Kilda fans get around him. If Tyler Brown had kicked a goal, or some of the other guys that got out in the ground in front of their home fans, how big that would have been. And also at that time of the game, Max King kicked his second goal. Saints hit the lead very late on.
Yeah,
it could have been a bit of a momentum surge with the crowd behind
have been a different story. So who knows.
Well, look, guys, we're going to take a short break here on the Rush Behind. When we come back, we're going to dip into the mail room and also see what we've gotten up to in isolation. Don't go anywhere. Hello and welcome back to the Rush Behind, live from TRB HQ. Athos, we've been in isolation over the past few days. We haven't gotten that bored yet, but we've tried some new things.
Yes, I learned how to do a handstand yesterday.
Didn't ask what you got up to.
Been doing plenty of fun, but we want to keep it footy related because this is a footy show. So we've set up a hashtag isolation challenge.
We've set it up, or is everyone else around the world?
Because that's our idea. It's completely
Well,
original.
we've added to the isolation challenge discourse, and we encourage everyone out there in the Rush Behind Nation to get involved and send us in your videos, and we might play them if we have an episode next week. But we had a go. We tried a few different things. So have a look. This is what we were doing in isolation during the week. That's all right. Ready? I'll get it.
If you break anything of mine, God help you that
I won't. Ready?
Yeah.
That's one of the biggest benders I've ever seen in my life.
It's now Judgment Day here. The gnocchi has risen to the top. The taste test is coming. The question is, are these gnocchis ready, or do they need a little bit longer? Let's have a look. As you can see, still stirring, nice bit of salt has been applied. But now it is time for the taste test. He's nailed that. That for me is 6 points. Beautiful stuff there. Now it is time for one of the more important parts too. Taking it from the stove to the sink. You can't afford to have a second water splashback. So here we go. Beautiful form. It's home! He's got the gnocchi into the strainer. Beautiful work there from Turbano. Beautiful. Fantastic appliance. Alright. Not
Very
bad,
interesting.
decent snap.
Thank you. No, I was very happy with that. And I was very happy with your commentary as well. It looks like you made a delicious gnocchi. If people are inspired by what we just did, be sure to send in your videos. That can be you doing anything. Facebook, Twitter and Instagram, and we'll either pop them up on the socials, we'll be active on that, or we might even play them next week if we're on. Yes.
We'll see what stage we're at.
Yes.
Of course. Let's head into the mail room, guys. Chris, take it away.
Yeah, so we've had one come in. This is an email from Irv, and he says, are any teams going to benefit from the break?
I'm going to say Carlton. I'll get Kerno, Mackay and Betts back by the time the next game comes around, so definitely big ins for their forward line.
Interesting. Athos?
I think they'll all benefit. Unless someone gets injured along the way.
More specific.
Anyone in Carlton will, Fremantle will. I think the sides that lost round one, I think, will be the big benefactors because they can go away, perhaps, put that well behind them, because usually teams look at round one as like the be all and end all, the sides that aren't very good. But they can come back now and say, look, we can have another crack at the season and go from there. But I think Freo, will come back really hard after this. They nearly pinched a result against Essendon. They'll have a few players back, so hopefully I think all the teams can come back well, but I think Freo and Carlton will be the two that I think will take the most advantage.
Yeah, Freo I had written down here as well. They'll get Stephen Hill, Blake Acres, Joel Hamling. They're the longer term injuries who can come back into the side.
Alex Pearce as well.
GWS will get Callan Ward back. North will get a few of their young guys in Paul Hearn, Luke Davis-Uniacke, Vickers Willis. All those guys will be able to come into the side as well. Give that little bit of extra depth. So
what about the Bulldogs? They had their pants pulled down last week.
Yeah, well, I think they did exactly what you don't like. Rush players in for round one. That's what they did with Aaron Norton. He had 2 touches and he had an absolute shocker. They'll probably get, I think that Tommy Brittore missed.
Liver missed,
yeah.
They had a couple others that missed that game. We're going to have to come back to that.
Lin Jong didn't play.
Lipinski out. Pat Lipinski missing a concussion. So few injuries in that team. Essendon will get Danaher, Hooker and Heppel potentially all back by the time
Danaher can't go to Sydney now, can he?
No, not for 6 months. Well, perfect timing for the off. Well, we don't know when the off season's going to be, but I'm sure by the time the off season ticks around, he'll be there in 2021. So let's move on, Chris.
I had a tweet in from Pat, and he said, was this the best advertisement to an international audience? We obviously saw Pat McAfee's tweets during the week.
Have you seen the AFL
the Australian Football League, Aussie Rules Football. I watched my first game last night at like 1 a.m., and it might be my favorite sport I've ever seen in my entire life. Basically, Aussie Rules Football is the best thing that could have ever been made. They punt like 6 times a minute. There's punt passes, there's completions, there's running, there's tackling. Refs toss balls like 65 yards over their heads. There's like, it's just this awesome sport that I knew nothing about.
Was some very interesting stuff there from Pat, but was this the best advertisement for the AFL? We know GWS and Essendon are looking to play a game in California in the coming years.
California, yeah. Well, yes and no. Yes, because Pat McAfee is like a huge star in social circles.
McAfee. I'm saying that wrong.
Pat McAfee, yeah. So he's a former NFL punter. He's also actually a WWE commentator, interestingly enough, actually down there. So he's got a huge reach. So NFL fans, wrestling fans, people, has a massive podcast as well. So people get around him. He's a bit of a cult figure that if he's watching it, you mean that his millions of Twitter followers would be getting around it and be seeing that as well. So I think that that's great. I think the only issue is that when all the big leagues come back, the AFL will probably get pushed right back down to channel God knows how.
Well, no, hang on. They've got ESPN over in the States. So that's a 24-hour sports channel. So they've got 24 hours of content.
But they'd rather play replays.
Yes, but hang on. Now that they've seen how good AFL is, they might slot it in.
But the ESPN have the rights. That's the only question.
No.
I think Fox Sports have the rights over there.
Okay, well, I'm sure they can work something out. But it put things into perspective for me, because here we are in Australia, often having a massive crack at footy and telling everyone everything wrong with it, and then here's this person on the outside loving it.
Yeah.
So I think you put a bit into perspective that we always don't need to, castigate and berate the game and nitpick it. Sometimes you can just enjoy it.
Yeah.
And that's what
something that you very rarely do.
Yes.
What, me?
Yeah.
Love it. I'm with you, Nick. Yes and no. Yes, it was great that they were watching. Exposure for our game. That being said, there was nothing else on, so that was the only thing they were watching. And no, in the fact that the game where this started was Fremantle Essendon, and that was an absolute fizzer up until the last quarter.
But he loved it. Again, perspective.
That's such a small sample
He did,
size.
but imagine if you had a crowd and a good
game.
He
got really excited when he
something.
heard that Mason Cox is an American
American,
playing, and they called him Coxzilla. I've never heard anyone call Mason Cox Coxzilla. It's just such an American.
Maybe in Japan.
Coxzilla, yeah.
Anyway, it might help Essendon and GWS in their future endeavours.
Well, not the Bombers, because they'll have people actually know them when they go there.
Yeah, exactly.
So that'd be quite big. Let's move on.
This one from Kelly, sent in through our Facebook page. Should quarters stay the same length? Now, we all know that they've been shortened as a result of COVID-19. Nick, I'm very keen to hear your thoughts on this one.
No. It's such a small sample size. Like, seriously, the games were so low scoring as well. Like, go back to the way it was. If it's not broken, don't fix it. Like, don't need to change it.
I'm going to just completely destroy this argument right now and tell you why it's not going to happen. Because the AFL wants to remove defending and they want to see 150 defeating 134. You can't get that with 16-minute quarters. So there's no way they're going to shorten the quarters. They're going to keep it as is.
I hope they do. I just don't understand.
Yeah.
I didn't mind it. I thought the game's quicker. Teams lose easier.
But why is quick sport entertaining sport? You can't, as
you would say, you can't force
the quarters are still 25-minute long.
Yeah, but the thing is though,
and Richmond and Carlton still kicked over 80 points.
They're saying, greater set shots, greater attacking football. It's because there's no force entertainment into it. You don't get that. You kick set shots. That's like them at training.
Look, it makes the boring games easier to watch. I watched North Melbourne St Kilda, Carlton, Adelaide, Sydney. It's easy to watch.
Really? I think
Easy
North
to
Melbourne
watch.
St Kilda with 45,000 fans, which they probably would have been a lot.
35.
No, they've had something about 45. I think the Saints fans would have come out of the woodwork for the first time.
North home game, that's the only thing.
Yeah, and also Adelaide, Sydney, they always have healthy crowds at Adelaide.
Yeah, no, I didn't say anything about the crowds, that it's easier to watch if it's shorter, it's over quicker. As a neutral.
Forever the optimist. No, but for me, I reckon leave it as... leave the original game as is. 20-minute quarters, thank you.
Anyways, guys, I think we have time for us to take a short break here on the Rush Bar, but coming up on the show, so a bit of a jumble up in words there, but we're going to take a bit of a different route. We're going to start going back into the archives and looking back to the start of the millennium, the year 2000, and taking a look at some of the best moments, some of the big talking points from the year itself, and even have a look at some of our favourite plays from that period of time. Don't go anywhere. Hello and welcome back to The Rush Behind. It's been a massive show so far. Make sure you head over to our socials at The Rush Behind on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter for all the latest what we're doing. Catch up on some of the latest segments, including last week's episode. The last one we did from the RMIT studios, but now we're in TRB HQ for the temporary, for however long we can do this. So we promise to try and bring you an hour of content even in this current situation.
Sounds like a plan, and we're going to rewind the clock.
Yeah.
Going to go back. This is when we're only 2 years old when we're looking back to this year, but it's a year we look back on with great earnest. We wish we were around to watch this, football in its era. Some say it was in its peak during this time, and that is the year 2000.
Well, some will say fashion definitely was. If you have a look at some of these haircuts, especially the band NSYNC, headlined by Justin Timberlake. Look at his tips. Look at these.
What was
outfits.
in 2000? It was Y2K. That was
Y2K was massive.
Kylie made her comeback. Kylie Minogue came back. Snake came out on Foreign Season. I've done my research, so like.
I was going to say I didn't do that much research, but I know that North Melbourne wore an orange kit.
That's
and
a shocker.
Frere also wore this absolute shocker.
How about the West Coast away kit? That one was disgraceful. It looks like a PowerPoint background. You know when you could set the gradient for those, and it's like red into
back
blue.
in primary school.
Looks
back in the
disgusting.
day.
Don't know
Well, I
how
was
that-
playing with crayons and Play-Doh.
Basically looks like what you would have made, with your crayons and
Going
Play-Doh.
to play centres and Wiggles concerts. I was having a great time in the year 2000. Hopefully go back.
You were barely just over a year old back then, so like...
Likewise with you and Chris.
older than you, and he's older than you as well.
Would have been two.
Yeah, well, if Brooke was here, she'd be
Three.
She's
Bit older.
But
But let's talk about the footy. Nick,
Yeah.
what happened in the year 2000? Tell me, because I wasn't there.
Well, we all were there, we just don't remember.
Okay.
Well, it was the beginning of what we could say modern football. It was the first year where things went to stadium base, so we moved away from suburban grounds, Victoria Park. It was the last year in 1999, and it was the inception of this man here's, like, he hates this ground, Dockland Stadium, aka Marvel Stadium, aka Telstra Dome, aka Etihad Stadium, the list goes on.
Colonial? Did you say
Colonial Stadium was the first one. First ever game.
Oh, that's the next sponsor. So
Yeah, probably.
spoil that.
And it was the first ever game played there between Essendon and Port Adelaide. It was also the first season that we had what we now know as the top eight. The way that new top eight works. It's the AFL, I think AFL amended one, moving away from the McIntyre system. And and football obviously making that move to a more stadium-based approach.
Yeah, and it's sort of the bedrock of footy as we know it. I had a little bit of a look back at the McIntyre system. It's a bit of a funny one. I'm glad we've got the system that's in place now.
Weird.
I don't understand
Wasn't
it.
it like heaps of teams were getting weird
Well, it's
second
like
chances?
in the finals, one would play 8. That's how it
And
would
then
work.
you go second,
And then
seventh,
sec-
and then move your way
Oh,
down.
wow, so it's very...
And then
that's
whatever
very
happens
NBA.
afterwards is anyone's guess. I didn't really understand it.
Yeah.
But we had Essendon as the dominant team.
Very
I think
dominant.
that Essendon side, when we speak about great teams, they're often neglected in the sense of how good they were and how they've sort of underachieved.
Yeah, one premiership, and they probably could have won 3.
Probably could have had a three-peat, but it didn't quite go their way. But
Well, 99, they lost the prelim to Carlton.
you finished
in
6th that year.
Yeah, and in 2001, they lost the grand final to the ever-conquering Brisbane Lions, who started their 3-peat.
But in 2000, Aya 21 wins. James Hird won the Norm Smith. Lloydie won the Coles.
109 goals.
It was just happy
Yeah,
times for Essendon.
Scotty Lucas, 57 goals. But listen to how much they won their 3 finals by. 125 points against the reigning premiers
It's a
North
record.
Melbourne.
Qualifying final record.
45 points against the reigning runners-up Carlton, who they really,
Great
put that
storyline
good,
heading into that game
Yeah,
after
and
what
then-
happened the year
Then
before.
they beat the D's in the grand final by 60.
76.6 points average.
Jeez.
That's
so you've done the
whopping.
maths. You've really done the
Not
maths.
that hard, yeah.
But they've got that. Listen to some of the players that were playing back then. They had guys like, as you said, James Hird. They had Blake Carousella, Scott Lucas, Dustin Fletcher, James Johnson, Joe Mercedes. That's who I was thinking of. Damien Hardwick, Michael Long was still playing. Incredible team, but they had that one loss. The one blemish against the Bulldogs with Chris Grant's famous goal.
Yeah, that's one I remember. I just remember seeing highlights of this goal
played
over and
all the
over and
time,
over
yeah.
again. It's an excellent goal from Chris.
Has anyone ever gone undefeated? Or is
No.
that the
No one's
closest
just had an invincible.
So the Oval was like St Kilda and
St Kilda and Geelong, they were unbeaten in 2009 up until round 14, and I think the Saints lost, funnily enough, to Essendon in round 19.
Yeah,
So
Revolt missed after the
and then lost the grand final that year.
What I love about this Essendon side, it's probably the last time footy has seen this, because it was big in the 70s and the 60s and the 80s. So you had your stars, you had your Herds and your Michael Longs and your Lloydies, but then you had your Damien Hardwicks and those guys, whose job it was to protect the stars. So that would be
Basically
the
bash
forces.
up
We
the
don't
box,
see
yeah.
that these days.
Nah.
But yeah, that's what I think I love about this Essendon side. is
Very
that-
old-fashioned.
Yeah,
And,
with Sheedy at the helm too.
Yeah,
Great
and interestingly enough, listen to this stat. I was having a look at some of the talent, and I saw they only played 31 players that season, and they had 19 players play over 20 games.
Yes.
Well, there's ridiculous continuity.
Touching on that, so 18 of those players polled Brownlow votes in 2000,
Jesus.
and they polled as a team 116 out of a possible 132 votes.
In the games that they played.
In the games that
and
they
I think
played.
they only had one player in the top 10 of the Brownlow, and that was James Hurd. So,
and then Matty Lloyd not far behind on 14 votes. So
Yeah.
absolutely incredible. Like you said, they're sort of overlooked a little bit. Athos. You think of Hawthorn 3 or 4 premierships in their era, Geelong, a massive powerhouse, but they would just only had the one flag to their name and sort of slid under the
and then
radar.
since
as a
then,
result.
it's just been...
Finals have been few and far between.
Yeah, and but just a quick touch on one of the other powerhouses, Melbourne, the runners-up that year. That was the last time they really pushed. Up to 2018, they had that bit of a rise coming in from fifth. Sorry, yeah. They finished third. They beat Carlton in the qualifying final, then beat North Melbourne. Brownlow medalist Shane Woden, probably one of the more underdog winners that we've seen, and Jeff Farmer, 76 goals that season from a small forward.
The Wizard.
Kicked 9 goals and a half against Collingwood one game.
What
It's
a player.
unbelievable. Kicked 8 goals in the prelim as well. They had a guy that you might know very well from being a young Saints fan, Stephen Powell. He kicked 32 goals that year. Guys like Adam Uze, Russell Robertson, David Neitz, a lot of guys that we grew up watching, but have now moved on. So let's move on, guys. Let's talk a little bit about some of the implications for that year in terms of the draft. This is actually, I did a bit of digging just in terms of how some of these trades panned out. So this is some of the players that got picked up in the draft that year. So Josh Fraser went pick 1 heading into that year to Collingwood. Paul Hazelby pick 2. Aaron Fiora to Richmond at pick 3. Matthew Pavlich at 4 to Freo, and Lee Brown, turned out to be a premiership player for Collingwood, to pick 5 to the Dockers as well. So Dockers had the first 3 picks. Some of the other big players, Joel Corey, Luke McFarlane, Darren Glass, Bob Murphy, Brad Green, Jonathan Brown, Daniel Judd Syracuse, and Paul Chapman all went back to back. Leon Davis not far after that. Cameron Ling, Ryan O'Keefe, Cameron Bruce, Corey Enright as well. And Stephen Milne was one of the players picked up in the
He was
rookie
a rookie
draft.
draft.
So it was
along
Dean
with
Cox?
Dean Cox, Ty Kennelly, Dean Brogan, and James Podsiadly before we even saw him play a game 10 years later.
How crazy is
Yeah.
that?
So, and in terms of some of the trades, Richmond picked up Leon Cameron that year, and they traded what turned out to be Mitch Hahn and Ryan Hargraves to the Doggies, which turned out to be quite a decent trade. While Geelong and North Melbourne, listen to this one, Geelong picked up Cameron Mooney, along with 3 picks, which turned out to be 2 players who barely played a game, and Corey Enright, and they gave up Lee Colbert to go to North Melbourne. So a bit of a win-win with that one as well. Collingwood and Richmond, mate, this is a bit of an interesting trade, Athos. So we traded to you guys, Clinton King and pick 3 for Steve McKee. And
He played about 4 years, didn't he?
Yeah, Steve McKee played, I think, he played in 2002 Grand Final, that's all I remember him from.
But I think he had big raps on him.
Yeah, and Aaron Fiora became that pick 3, so big
Yes.
waste. And Troy Longmire went to Freo from Melbourne, and the D's picked up Brad Green in return. So some interesting trades with some implications that came out of it heading to the year.
Yeah, it's interesting hindsight sort of thing. It's when you read out or when you see a draft and you see a young kid get presented his jumper and you just wonder what his impact's going to be. Some will become icons and some will sort of fall by the wayside, and that's just the way it is. And it's interesting looking back almost, 20 years later and seeing how that is.
I think an interesting team to look at is North Melbourne during this time. They had come off
Yeah.
very successful era, and they were very active in the trade window. They got rid of guys like Peter Bell, and they picked up Big Sav.
Yeah, picked up big stuff for the next year. Yeah,
They got rid of Martin Pike as well. So they got rid of players that went
and
and
Collingwood were
did
huge going into
a few
2001
things
as
other
well. Yeah.
teams as well.
And then you think of the 2000 draft, just quickly before we go to an ad break, you have St Kilda getting 2 priority picks. You have Rewalt and Kajitsky
Yeah.
joining. Alan Didak goes to pick
Pick
number
3,
3. Who else we got here? We've got a couple.
Sean Burgoyne, he's still
Sean
young.
Burgoyne.
Yeah.
Ash McGrath, Scott Thompson, Daniel Kerr, Drew Petrie,
Yeah.
Chris
Wow.
Newman going to pick 55.
Yeah.
So very talented draft pool, that one.
But there's a lot of premiership players that even went the year before heading into 2000 that turned out to be huge players. A lot of guys, like you look at some of the guys picked under pick 40 that ended up becoming premiership players, like Corey Enright, Chance Bateman, Ryan O'Keefe, Ben Johnson.
Chance Bateman.
Yeah, unbelievable Chance
Yes.
Bateman. Dean Cox as well, another premiership player, Ty Kennelly and Dean Brogan, and Podsiadly too, technically. So a lot of guys end up having decent careers. But let's take a short break here on the Rush Behind. When we come back, we'll continue our 2000 chat. Hello and welcome back to the Rush Behind. It's been as always, a massive show so far. Could be one of
different show.
Yeah, very different. We don't know what's going to happen next week, so let's just enjoy this for what it is. We've started our chat about the year 2000. Let's say the 2000s. We're actually talking about the year in itself. We said crazy fashion, Don's dominant, Y2K. You can almost make a Billy Joel song out of that, but we didn't start the fire, basically.
Very clever.
Billy Elliot was big in 2000. He burst into the scene then.
Is that when the movie came out?
I think so, 2000.
It's a musical, isn't it?
It was a movie. I think it's a musical
Yeah.
movie.
But we are going through the years if we are going forward with the Rush Behind. So send us in your favourite years and we'll see if we remember them firstly and talk about them.
We had one request, which we'll actually get to next week and if we're on, and we will go forward in time. We had Alex come through and say he wants to see 2007, the year the Cats won the flag. It was a very exciting year. I personally remember it. I don't know.
Me too.
It
was a drought-breaking year for the Cats.
Yeah, and Richmond, I think, finished last, didn't they?
I think so.
Yeah, and the Saints, you missed the 8, didn't you?
Missed the 8.
Yeah, Collingwood made the prelim from 6. So
They
it was a very good year, in my opinion. We didn't do much in the end. Let's move on. Let's talk about some of our favourite moments. We talked about, our best performances, the best goals. We don't remember much from it, so we had to do a bit of research.
Yes.
Chris, let's start with you. Best individual performance of the year 2000.
Well, we've talked a lot about Essendon today. Rightly so. Very talented lineup and probably second tier down. You had James Heard, obviously, but Matthew Lloyd, the goal-kicking machine, absolute freak in front of goal, lethal left boot, rarely missed. So the best individual performance that I could dig up was his qualifying final performance against North Melbourne. Absolutely pumped them. 125-point win, as we said, qualifying final record.
Jeez.
He racked up 20 disposals and booted 7 goals.
Wow.
And including his 100th, which we'll touch on a little bit
Did
later.
the fans get to run on the ground?
They did. We'll play the vision in a sec. We don't want to jump the gun here, but love seeing Matty Lloyd play. Finished with, what was it by the end of his career? 900 goals?
900. He got close to 1,000.
Not close to 1,000. Absolute talent.
Do you think that he was like the last pure full forward? Like pure, because Buddy, you could argue Buddy, but Buddy plays such a different role.
I think Lloydie was definitely the straightest kick.
Yeah, he never missed.
He also was a straight diver too. Got a lot of free kicks.
Oh, that's just a Richmond fan coming
And
down.
He got a lot of free
he
kicks because
did.
people
And
fell on
he
him. But he was a star as well.
and
One of the
he
straightest
had
kicks I've ever seen.
Very precise routine as well. He used to pull the socks
pull the
up,
grass as well.
shirt tucked in, everything. He was a very it was back then. I think as a young fan, it's like this guy's just.
But everyone used to do it, the Matthew Lloyd, the grass.
Yeah, it became iconic.
Yeah.
So as much as like James Heard with the long sleeve, Matthew Lloyd with the tucked in shirt and the thing else. Athos, you got one from mine or you didn't do your
No, I
research?
did. I did. James Heard's performance in the grand final I thought was very good. He had 24 kicks.
Wow.
Kicked the ball 24 times.
Yeah,
It's
wow.
incredible.
What was
And he
that?
won,
How many disposals?
29, I think.
pretty
And
good,
he won the Norm Smith medals. So it's a captain's day out on the grand final.
Well, you guys are
That's
both-
what you want from St James.
Yeah. Well, you both picked Essendon players, so I've decided to go a little bit different. I've decided to go with Scotty Cummings. Kicked 14 goals in one game at the Wacker for West Coast. So it's one of the last years played the kicked 14 goals in a game.
Who against?
Adelaide.
Oh.
I think Adelaide.
Thought you were going to say St Kilda for a second.
No.
Wouldn't
He
have been
kicked
too
14
surprised.
goals in that game. That's unheard of. That is a ridiculous amount.
Well,
For a
unheard
guy-
of now.
Yeah, for a guy who played a very short career and played for so many different clubs. Like if you look at how many different clubs he played 5 clubs in about 8 years or something. He kicked a ridiculous amount of goals. Like unbelievable. And he finished up his career at Collingwood in 2002. Played I think for Essendon as well. And I believe he played for Port. So he's played, I think, 4 different teams. But he had a good tenure at West Coast. I think the year before, he kicked close to 100 goals that season as well. Best goal.
Well, this one, I know you've taken the Goal of the Year nomination, so we had to do a little bit of digging. And funnily enough, I've come up with Matty Lloyd again. We touched on it earlier when he slots his 100th. We see the crowd running out here. Scenes. Last time this happened, Buddy it would be.
And then
last
Fraser
time.
Garrick in 2004.
Yeah. Garrett G-Training in 04 in the prelim, and then Buddy would have been the last one. It was the race between Buddy and Fev. I
And
remember
then Fev was one
get to
goal
the
away,
hundreds.
and then Hawthorn played party pooper and didn't let Fev
Didn't let him get it.
Well, mine's one for the history books, actually. As we know, you mentioned the first game at Dockland Stadium.
So you got the first goal?
We're on a community station, so we have to call it by its proper name, not by its slave name. We can't call it Marvel. But the first goal at Dockland Stadium, Michael Long versus Port Adelaide. Typical Michael Long goal on the run. Slots it from about 40 metres out. Play it now if you like.
There you go.
There you go.
Very
One for the
nice
history
finish.
books.
Well, as you said, goal of the year went to Kingsley Hunter, not a very well-known name, former Western Bulldogs player. This goal got the ball in the half-back flank, ran all the way up the wing, as you can see here. Took them all on, 1-2, kicked it from 50. Brilliant goal to give the Doggies the lead, I think a 4-goal lead at that point in that game as well. So a nice goal there from Kingsley Hunter. I know we don't remember much from the year 2000. As Athos says, he basically remembers just playing his crayons and everything else. If we had something to pick from that year that you'd love to see, we could almost say what we missed the most, say for like people that are a bit older than us and do remember the year 2000. What's something you almost wish you could see now and something you missed from that time?
Athos jumped in and said it earlier, but it's the big true forward. The big stay at home,
Full forward.
yep, kick 90 goals in a season, kick 70 goals in a season, whatnot, win the Coleman.
Jack Revolt does that.
Yeah, but I've actually got a list of the Coleman medal winners here. So, what do we got? Matty Lloyd, so kicked 94. And then the next highest, Buddy kicked 102 in a season. And then after that, we're dropping down into
that
the
home
60s.
and away?
Yeah. And then we're dropping into the 70s, 60s. Jeremy Cameron last year with 67. So I just want to see a few more bags. Your big forward, booting 5 every week.
Why though? That for me right now, it shows defenders have improved out of sight. I don't
Tactics too.
Yeah,
Tactics,
of course.
Exactly. If my team's keeping them to 30 like they were 2 years ago, I'm loving it. I don't mind.
Do you have something you missed or you'd love to see from the year 2000?
Um,
a certain player, certain anything, like watching, I don't know, prime Matthew
Maybe 16.
Richardson?
I feel like you'd love it to see 16 teams. I feel
Yeah,
like.
I think
Yeah, I
16
hate to
would
see
be great.
Yeah, back to 16.
Back to 16, I think would be great.
Okay, fair enough. My thing that I missed the most, I watched this guy growing up towards the end of his career when he was playing for Freo, Jeff Farmer.
Yes,
The Wizard. He was electric, absolutely electric. And I was watching some of his highlights today. This one here in the prelim final against North Melbourne, he was taking the mick out of them. 8 goals in a game in a prelim. 8 goals in a prelim.
That's insane.
From a small forward.
Yeah, I was going to say,
You're right, I thought so. Defences have gotten better.
Jeff Farmer was out of this world
He
in
couldn't
terms
fucking
of talent.
manage.
He was just a ridiculously great footballer. And it's a shame that we probably saw the end of Jeff Farmer with a few controversies towards the end. But I think watching him even towards the end playing for Freo, there was one season I think I was having a look in 2006, he still kicked 56 goals for a guy in his 30s. Ridiculous amount. And I think when we talk about some of the great Indigenous footballers, I think sometimes he flies a
he's
little bit under the
overlooked,
radar.
certainly.
Because we always talk about great small forwards, your Betts, Rioli, Milne, those sort of players. But I think Jeff Farmer should be right up the top there
Oh,
because he was leading that goal kicking. Russell Robertson, David Neitz barely had to do anything that year in terms of goals. It was just the Jeff Farmer show every week.
It was. And like you said, it's unfortunate we sort of caught the tail end of the career and we didn't see him at his absolute peak, but when he was on, he was absolutely
And then
on.
he was off to Freo after that, so only one more year at the D's.
We also saw Prince's Park
Yeah.
used in
It was
the year
5 more years and it was
as well.
off in 2005. So that was the end of what we now know as Icon Park, but Princess Park is what we're supposed to call it. But Icon Park, definitely. They want to go back to it eventually, but I don't think we're going to be seeing that anytime soon. We're going to take a short break here on The Rush Behind for the final time tonight. When we come back, we've got plenty more coming up after this. Hello and welcome back for the final time today to The Rush Behind. It's been, as always, a huge show, but an ever-changing situation which is going on with the COVID-19 pandemic throughout the world. We don't know exactly how things will change by the time you see this on Friday night, so hopefully we can come to you again next week, but for the time being, let's end on a little bit of a high. It's time now for a bit of a new segment.
Yeah, well, it's time for your
Yeah, well, I was letting you
time-
segue.
your
Set
time-
yourself up for your own seat.
Your
Yeah, well,
time-
you
it's
know.
your time in the
I
sun.
used to do that last year with you when you used to set up for me.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I used to handball it to you and
No,
you
but I
said-
said you just set yourself up there.
Yeah, that's the point.
Anyway, this
Ah.
is your soapbox. This
Yeah.
is where you get to air either your grievances or you get to applaud something. It's been
Or
an
just
eventful
talk.
week, or just talk. An excuse to talk. You've got a couple of minutes blocked
Yeah.
out here, so I'm very excited to see what you think after a very eventful week in the AFL.
Well, I didn't talk about anything that actually happened in the AFL. I'm talking about the year 2000. So I'm talking about how the year 2000 potentially started some of the super teams of the 2000s.
Interesting.
So talking just that first, talking about 5 different teams very quickly. So for Collingwood, that was the first year with Nick Malthouse at the helm.
Yep.
They had the vision to be like a Manchester United-esque team when they picked up Sir Alex Ferguson. unfortunately won premiership since, so I don't think it's been anything near Sir Alex Ferguson. A lot of losses along the way. But they loaded up at the draft that year with guys like Leon Davis, Ben Johnson, Alan Dynak the year after that. Josh Fraser ended up playing 200 games for the club. The next year, guys like James Clement, Brodie Holland and co. all came in. And they had still guys like Nathan Buckley, Anthony Rocker, Chris Tarrant, who were staples in the team going forward. They made a grand final 2 years later. That's a big thing. They made that big jump and lost to, unfortunately, arguably the best team of the modern era in Brisbane. Brisbane, on that hand, they were inching ever closer. They made the finals that year. They made a bit of a late run in 2001, but Jonathan Brown was almost like one of the missing pieces, and they got Mel Michael the year after that. So Jonathan Brown came in the draft to help out Alistair Lynch at the time. Then we talk about one of the other big teams in 2000s, Port Adelaide, a team that probably could have won more premierships, but seemed to choke when it came to the finals. But they loaded up a season later with some of the pickups they got. Sean Burgoyne, Kane Corns and Dom Cassisi all joined the club, and then they went on to win a premiership in 2004. The Saints, well, they finished at the bottom, but they laid the foundations for the team coming through. That would put them in good steads for later in the 2000s, and in particular around 2004 when they started to make a bit of a run with Revolt, Kaczynski, Milne all coming into the club in that season. Geelong, they picked up some handy players too, which put them in good stead for the years to come. Guys like Cam Mooney, Joel Corey Enright amongst them. They ended up making a prelim in 2004 and a semi-final in 2005, then went on a great run from 2007 onwards, winning 3 flags in 5 years.
They also picked up Bomber Thompson
around that time, yeah. So they really went all out and they were able to get some good players in.
Excellent. Time for the quiz.
Let's go. Athos, you're the quiz master this week.
I am the quiz master.
Well,
10 people questions this week.
Oh,
yeah.
that's not good.
So we've got the paddles again.
But Chris hasn't got his own.
Chris has
I've
me,
got
so
you
I
this
am
week.
here in spirit. The tag team are going to take Nick down. Okay, are we ready?
Yeah. Well, can we start what we're actually playing for today?
What are we playing for? Oh,
Well, it's
over
actually
there.
off shot.
Yeah,
It's
trophy.
right over there.
We'll grab
It is-
it up. I reckon we'll do a big reveal.
I am that confident I'm going to win today that I'm willing to put up my Youth Personality of the Year trophy.
We didn't say what the trophy was, but okay.
But we're going all out for it. Chris, if you win,
That's
you get
mine.
to take it home.
Can I change my LinkedIn
Joke,
to
you're not taking it home, mate. It's fine.
Can I change my LinkedIn to say I won it as well?
No.
If
Twitter bio.
Twitter bio.
Anyway, let's
It's
start
not
the
my
quiz.
Twitter bio though, but
Question.
Alright.
Okay. Are you ready to start the quiz?
of course.
Yeah.
Okay, question 1. You have to listen carefully. Name the only VFL AFL team to fold completely. Yes, Nick.
University.
Yes. Who is the first American to play AFL? Chris?
I feel like it's not Mason Cox, but I'm going to say him anyway.
No.
Eric
Nick?
Wallace.
No, it's Jason Holmes from
Oh, who's that North Melbourne dude, Wallace?
Yeah.
Technically, it's Don Pike, isn't it?
Don Pike.
He was born in Chicago.
Let's not.
I don't know, is he?
Yeah, he is.
Okay. Name one player with the statue outside the MTG. Nick?
Lee Matthews.
Yes. South Melbourne relocated to where? Chris?
Sydney.
Correct. The original league team's show, yes, Nick?
Was on a Thursday night.
No. Had Jack Dyer, Lou Richards, and who as its hosts? Yes, Nick.
Bob Davis.
Correct. Who's kicked the most goals at the MCG? Chris?
Lloyd.
No.
Gordon Coventry.
No. Give you one more answer. Yes.
Richo.
Yes.
Really?
Brendan Favola has kicked how many goals in 2008?
99.
Yes, Nick. Okay. Name one of the two players who won both mark and goal of the year in the same year. Chris?
Did Nicky Winmar do it?
No, that's not what I've got.
Matthew Lloyd.
Nah.
Can you give us a hint?
He played for Richmond. He's Indigenous. Yes, Nick?
It wouldn't be Andy Cracker.
No.
Nah, pass.
Michael Mitchell, 1990.
Didn't know.
Really digging back.
Who's the other one?
Peter Bossustow.
Okay.
Carlton.
There we go.
3 teams. Name the 3 teams who are yet to make a grand final in the 21st century. Chris?
Gold Coast.
Yes?
Brisbane. No, not Brisbane. Carlton.
Yes? Need one more?
North Melbourne.
Yes, correct. And name me, just give me 3 number 1 draft picks. Chris?
Nick Rewalt.
Yep.
Sam Walsh.
Yep.
Matt Rao.
Fantastic.
And Ben Baines.
I got no idea who's winning, but I thought that was quite even. Now, this is the lightning round. All
That's my show on FNR.
all body
Keep
parts.
stealing these bloody names.
All body parts will be involved here.
What?
For example,
I'm a bit worried.
give me the sign for a super goal. Yes.
Like
Yeah.
that?
Good stuff.
Oh, that's a question.
Yes.
Right.
How many teams won 12 games in the year 2000? Yes, Nick.
4?
Nah.
5.
Nah. 3. Who kicked the first goal of 2020? Chris.
It was a Carlton player. No, it wasn't. Oh, no.
Yes, Nick.
Shane Edwards.
Yes,
It
that's
was.
correct. Which family did the four brothers who all played at once belong to? Yes, Chris.
Essendon.
Yes, the family.
The Danahers.
Yes, correct. Finish this line of the song. We are Geelong, the... Yes, Nick.
Greatest team of all.
That's correct. Robert Walls was sacked after who kicked the goal after the siren? Chris.
Oh, no. Pass.
Yes, Nick. Brisbane Bears at Princes Park?
Stephen Kernahan.
No.
Gilbert McAdam.
No. I think it was Robert Walls. We got sacked.
We have the question.
No, it was. Warren Kappa kicked the goal.
Alright.
On the siren, and he sacked him. Shane Woden played for Melbourne and which other club? Yes, Nick.
Collingwood.
Correct. Who won the pre-season cup in 2000? Chris.
Essendon.
Yes, correct. They did the triple that
Do
year.
you know what the competition was called?
It was the Wizard Cup.
Answer.
Oh, the Ansett series.
True or false? Anthony Koutafidis won a Brownlow. Yes, Chris.
False.
That's right. He never won a Brownlow. And name all the Riolis to have won a premiership. Nick.
Daniel.
Yep.
Morris.
No.
No. Dean.
No, you
Oh,
got
hang on,
one.
that's out.
So yes, Chris.
Daniel,
Yes.
Cyril,
Yes.
and Dean.
Yes. Who else?
Oh, well, it's not Morris.
Recently.
Willie.
Yes.
Oh.
You can share that answer. Half a point
That's
extra.
right.
Now for the who am I?
Oh no.
Alright, so is this a decider?
Sure.
Oh, I'm
I
just
think
saying,
I think I'm definitely
if I-
winning.
No, rubbish.
No, this
Definitely.
This is the who am I. It's part of the script. You got to do it.
So let's say it's dead.
So who am I? I was born in Queensland, but represented Victoria in State of Origin. Interesting one there. I was drafted to Hawthorn in 1985.
Oh my god.
I won 4 premierships. Yes, Chris. Oh, no, you just playing around there. I once kicked 17 goals in a game. Chris.
Jason Dunstall.
Yeah, correct.
And I'll take that trophy.
Oh,
Thank you
let's
very
go
much.
take it.
Yeah, no, you're not getting it.
No, I've got to grab these. Sorry.
Just kidding. Look at that. How you mean just kidding? You just dropped it.
Well, it's mine now. It doesn't matter, does it?
It doesn't have your name on it.
Just a bit of spitting.
But yes, that was the quiz. Thank you very much for
COVID-19
playing, boys. Thank you for playing at home as well. And be sure to tune in next week where we'll have more questions and more things to go away.
Just getting over the line here.
Well, let's hope. Let's hope. Well, guys, we don't know what the situation will be like next week. We said we'd bring you a show last week, and we somehow did in TRB HQ. But we'll be back again hopefully next week from 6 p.m. If we're not, I'm sure there'll be some sort of rerun from maybe last year, maybe a historical episode.
We'll still be a presence throughout.
There'll be somewhere, but we'll be back eventually. If it's next week or 6 months down the track, let's hope.
Yeah.
But for myself, Nick Tabano, Christopher Nice and Athos Sirianos, stay safe, wash your hands, stay home if you can. It's goodbye for now.